Good evening and welcome to a Tuesday night edition of the Buddy March Show. It's hopefully a night when everything's working. Got the last second update and said, okay, let's update. So we're updated and hopefully the audio is working. Everything's good to go. On the program tonight, going to be interesting. David Whitley. Whitley always seems to draw the short stick because it's Tuesday nights and everything updates. Anyway, hopefully you're there. We're here. We got an hour to go. We got good guests. We're going to talk a little soccer. A new hero in American sports. Yeah, that's right. I said it. So we'll talk about that. You stand by. David Whitley is in the orange and blue room. He's coming next right here on the Buddy Martin Show right now. Tell your friends and neighbors we're on the air.
It's time again for Buddy Martin. Call him up and tell him what you're thinking. But be kind because he's doing the best he can.
Better, stronger, faster.
Mama says that alligators are ornery because they got all them teeth but no toothbrush.
Hey, what if the voice calls while you're gone?
Take a message.
Bye.
You ready, champ?
I'm ready for this my whole life.
I'm incapable of small talk. But that's why you love me, right?
Kind of intimidating to be in the presence of so many great athletes.
Good evening. Well, we got something to cheer about tonight. It's not football for a change. Don't care if you're not a fan of soccer. You got to know about it if you didn't. United States beat Iran. Say it right. Iran today over in Qatar and have survived the World Cup Series. Now, look, you know I don't talk much about soccer ever. Don't know anything about it. But I'm a journalist, and when there are big stories breaking, I can't help myself. And neither can David Whitley. So we're going to join with David in a second. The new Captain America, Christian Pulisic, today became a hero. We even got a picture of him on Mount Rushmore already. Yeah, that's right. I had to figure out who was missing. I think old George is missing. And there's Christian Pulisic, a young man who made a goal and paid a price today and led the Americans to a 1-0 win over Iran. And lived again to fight another day, play the Netherlands on Saturday. That's about all you need to know for right now. We'll talk about it more. We got guys later on who know something about soccer, unlike David Whitley and I. We know a little bit, but not much, and we joined now by columnist David Whitley, one of my favorite nights of the week to get a chance to talk to David. Good evening, David.
Good evening, buddy. How are you?
I'm happy. I'm an American. I can say
right.
we. Yeah, you're right. Did you watch any of it?
As a matter of fact, I as luck would have it, I was in a hospital waiting room, and it was on TV, and I happened to look up right when the guy scored the goal, and then I was called. So it was. I will remember this day for two things: Christian Pulisic. Is that how you say his name?
I guess
Pulisic?
so. I think you're asking
I better
me.
learn this because, as you said,
Pulisic.
He's up there with Lincoln, Roosevelt,
Yeah.
and Washington at this
He
point.
took George's place
Pulisic.
on. He took George's place
Yeah.
on here. So I got to
Yes,
whoever
I
did
remember,
this.
I remember this day for him scoring the goal and my wife having foot surgery.
Oh boy,
in that order.
how's she doing, by the way?
Apparently, she must be doing better than poor Christian because I hear he's pretty racked up with some sort of abdominal injury now. Huh?
Well, here's the good news. First of all, what's your wife's name?
Mariana, like
Mariana.
the city in,
Get well soon, Mariana. All the best wishes to do. Those feet, my wife has a problem with hers, and it's really a big deal. And here's the latest update. Just you get the latest soccer news from me. There he is. There he is. He's the guy. That's Christian Pulisic in the hospital room. He says, "So proud of my guys. I'll be ready Saturday. Don't worry." And there he is from Hershey, Pennsylvania, 5'10", Captain America, who made the goal, sacrificed his body today and took a big hit. And boy, is he big right now in the United States among the people who follow soccer.
I'm getting George Gipp vibes from this guy now. It's all the great things that you would want in this game.
Yeah.
I'm like you. My knowledge of soccer and the X's and O's and intricacies could fit inside a thimble.
Yeah.
But when it's America and you're playing, I mean, you could not pick out save Russia. I don't think there's any country that people will get their dander up more, or the good old Cold War vibes going more
Yeah.
than as you said, Iran, not Iran,
No,
but
don't get in
Iran.
trouble for saying Iran. Iran.
Iran.
Iran. The guy got in trouble for
Right.
saying it wrong today. So,
Yeah.
but that was, this sounds crazy. I don't know. You say a thimble, it's a small thimble. But I did watch every bit of it, and I got to say, I always criticize soccer because there's so many long, boring stretches and non-scoring. This was a 1-0 dramatic game, believe it or not.
Yeah.
Well, right down to the very last, you wonder because if they tied the game, then the United States is going home. They had to win to stay alive out of Group B. And anyway, just a little story. And like you say, it's not necessarily the sport. Sure ain't Gator sports, but as journalists, we can't help ourselves, can we?
Yeah, well, and let's face it, this is what people will be talking about. They're talking about today, and people who normally have no interest in soccer. I mean, this is it, baby. I mean, this is better than the Olympics because even the Olympics with soccer that gets lost in the shuffle. But I mean, soccer is the show, and
Yeah.
this is making headlines all over the world. Nothing that happens that we concern. Hard as it is to believe, probably the FSU Florida result didn't even make the agate in the New Delhi Times. But
Yeah,
this will be
explain what agate is to people that don't know. But
oh yeah, that was
it's
just
a small type.
yeah, just the fine print there. You see on page 2 of your newspapers with all the scores and stuff like that. So, but I mean, this has people buzzing because I guess it's easy to sort of laugh off these. How good could Iran be and all, but you see, I couldn't tell you Cameroon and Senegal. I guess they play, but those are two. When you hear them, it's just hard to get really psyched about this. But and these people, they know how to play this sport around the world, and you can see the incremental. It's taken decades improvement in the U.S. and now I think today was I guess really what really mattered. I mean, from here on out, it's gravy. From what I hear, just making the round of 16. So anything from here is just a bonus.
Yeah.
But as you said, had they gone home, I mean, had they been knocked out and not gone out of the Group B, not advanced, and having it happen at the hands of Iran, then people would look back on this and gone, ugh.
Talk about a rival. I mean, it's a rival for you. And by the way, not to get too deep into yesterday and nostalgia, and this wasn't at this level, but it kind of reminds me of what it was like at Lake Placid the night the Americans beat the Russians. Now, I wasn't at that level. I was at that game, and I won't go into that anymore. But that kind of thing, and I had to explain, and the game was not live, and it was taped and played the next day, and I had to call my office and convince them to put it on the front page of the New York Daily News. And they finally conceded. They put a headline up there. I said, you don't understand. It's a hockey game, but it's a big hockey game. It has internet. You got to remember what's going on with Afghanistan, invasion of Russians, and all that stuff. So this had a little bit of that in it, too, as well. All right, so I never thought we'd talk 10 minutes about soccer, but hey, it is what it is, right?
Mm-hmm. Like you said, well, one word I remember from that is Mike Eruzione.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so now it's going to be Christian Pulisic.
Yeah, Christian Pulisic from Hershey, PA. Mm-hmm. He's 5'10". I looked him up, 5'10". He's not a big guy, but he certainly had a big deal. Well, I guess more important story for some are the college football rankings, which came out, which were no surprises in tonight. The committee put Georgia back in first, Michigan unsurprisingly was second. Then TCU and USC have moved up. So now that changes things a little bit. I'm told, I don't know, this changing the betting parlay, I don't know, whatever that means. They're all over USC and TCU trying to get the ranks, whatever. Now, having said that, nothing for Florida, but obviously we don't know where the Gators are going to go for somewhere in a bowl game. It's pretty meaningless, but a chance to go 7-6, and there's something about has a little different sound to it. I talked to Spurrier the other day, and he had a year where he was 6-6 and won the bowl game, and it really meant a lot then back then. But I will say that looking at this season, you can better evaluate now. And the 6-6, not ranked, but Florida beat Utah, number 11. Right, all right. Florida clobbered South Carolina, who wound up 8-4, clobbered them 38-6. And now South Carolina is 16th. Florida lost 3 games by 1 score or less. And then their 2 big losses were obviously by the ranked teams that looked like they were both going to be in the playoff. Now one would be Georgia. They lost by 22, their worst loss, and then LSU by 10. So I don't know how you quantify that, but I mean, it doesn't look quite as bad from 20,000 feet, does it?
No, and it is fun. I think the craziest thing that of all you just said was how South Carolina, as bad as that team looked, 3 weeks ago, when they left Florida Field that day, you were wondering if they're going to score another touchdown this year. Then they go out and beat Tennessee and Clemson in back-to-back weeks.
Yeah, wow. They had a great season in 2 weeks. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean that looks like the Gators. By far they're sterling for that in Utah. Man, that was surprising. But yeah, the only I guess drama tonight, and I was watching the show. Actually, I was watching a little bit closer than I was the soccer. I guess I'm ashamed to admit as an American, but with who would be number 5, whether it be Ohio State or Alabama, because that's the team that if there is an upset this week, and that's the team that in theory will just slide right in.
Sure.
And that is a really fun debate over who should get in there. Ohio State, which was unbeaten, but then just got drilled at home by Michigan, or the Tide, which just lost those 2 games on by 4 points on the last play. So I mean that'll be a really interesting little holy war that those 2 factions get into if one of those teams do lose this weekend.
Yeah,
it's hard to imagine that the college football selection committee would jump Alabama or Ohio State when neither of them play. Unless somehow Michigan gets drilled by Purdue and they don't look that good and all that kind of stuff.
I don't think it's going to happen.
It's hard to see that happen.
Stranger than well, I didn't see South Carolina beating Clemson either.
No,
but this is college football and things do happen, so we'll see. But Florida didn't have any blowouts really. I wouldn't call Georgia a blowout. They got to be 22 by the best team in America, and so they had a respectable 6-6. And unfortunately, they didn't win any games over their rivals, which was unfortunate. But that always hurts. But
yeah. Well, it's that looks worse because historically, the rivals have been. This may have been one of the best collection of rivals that they've had.
Yeah.
Because Georgia's number 1. Tennessee. Arguably turned into one of its best teams in the last 15 or 20 years.
Yeah,
they were technically they were ranked number 1 too for a while.
Right.
Right. And FSU caught them on the upswing. I mean they're not a number 1 team, but what are they 13th in the CFP poll tonight? And
I don't have it in front of me, but I think sounds about right.
So I mean that was it's not like the rivals were down here. I mean this was a year where frankly they were not favored to beat any of the rivals. I don't know how many times that's happened over the years.
Yeah, sure.
The real damper on it all is just the Vandy game. I mean if they had gotten by that one, you're looking at 7-5 at worst. And that's just you just throw that into just the head scratcher. Murphy's Law kind of day, where if it could go wrong, it did go wrong, and then Vandy was on the upswing, but boy, then Tennessee just plastered them.
Yeah,
so
for sure,
put them back in the real. But most people I think they had them between 6-6 and 8-4 kind of thing, and 7-5, and that's what I had nobody factored in the Vandy thing. So, the year went pretty much as expected,
Yeah. All right, let me do this. Let me just tell folks about Titan MRI. Coming up later in the show, we're going to have a guy who knows a little soccer. Graham Hall will join us talking about soccer. And then it's trivia night, and Lauren Meadows went by Steve Spurrier's Gridiron Grill and have a trivia question for you. You probably know the answer to this. But first, let me remind folks that Titan MRI is worth a short drive to Gainesville. No insurance, just no problem. You can pay with cash or card with same-day scheduling available. You can start feeling better today. Titan MRI is North Central Florida's premier independent and MRI facility. Come by and see why hundreds of patients are visiting our Gainesville location from Ocala, Marion County, and the villages. That's TitanMRI.com. There's this guy too, by the way.
This is Lauren Meadows with Gator Bait Media, bringing to you a new special treat that we're going to have for you guys. Every Tuesday, I'm going to ask a trivia question from Spurrier's Gridiron Grill. Who will be the first to get it? If you are, you'll be in line for great prizes every month. We'll enter you into a drawing, and we'll see who's top in trivia. I'll do my best to stump you guys every single week from right here at Spurrier's Gridiron Grill. For Gator Bait Media, this is Lauren Meadows. We'll see you inside.
All right, Lauren will be along in a minute with this trivia question. All right, the news today, and of course the portal has always got stuff popping. I don't know how to report that story. I mean, I was talking to Shane this morning about it. Who's in, who's out, who's doing what. We have no real sources until they arrive, and we know they're in. And I'm sure you're having the same problem, being the columnist there writing games, of having to deal with it. But let's skip over to the recruiting. By the way, there is one portal story I'll get to. Miami Hurricane safety Avante Williams from DeLand, who was the number one safety in 2020, is leaving the program. There's a couple of little issues there with Avante I'll get into, but there's going to be good players leaving this team and good players that are available through the portal. But one of the things we deal with this time of year, in addition to the portal, is we deal with coaches being hired and fired. And the most interesting thing I heard today, this did not come up in any particular source, is apparently there's some serious discussions going on now with Deion Sanders and USF. And apparently the report I don't know the guy who put it on Twitter, so I can't tell you. It's journalists, and I hate reporting things I'm not sure of. But apparently he was in the USF facility this morning, Deion. And this comes from a guy who covers the team. He picked it up from somebody else. He said the deal is 90% done. Money and control were issued, but big boosters have stepped up. Deal is expected to be 5 years, $25 million range. Would be a grand slam hire for USF. So what do you think of that?
Well, I'm a little bit surprised at the money, and because I didn't know that USF would have that kind of booster support, that they would suddenly come up with 25 mil for a coach, guaranteed. Hats off to them for doing it. Obviously, it's hard to imagine a better hire that they could make than Deion, because this is a program that, beyond the X's and O's, it just needs to make a splash, just to be relevant again, just to get people talking about it. And man, you're not going to do better than Deion for that. And he's a natural fit just for all the Florida angles. He's from Fort Myers, and God knows he's well established. And I guess the other team that had offered him, the job was Colorado. But it's more established and all. But I think he's a better fit at USF.
I agree with you. I think there's a side to this. The state you've been working at all your life. But and I know this sounds like a small thing, but this is one more little bite out of the recruiting area for the Florida Gators. If he starts getting some 3 and 4 stars in this area, that impacts Florida, and that's the thing you got to remember. You got it going on down at UCF now. Obviously, there's a transition there, and that program's going better. USF now, FSU has gotten better, and all of a sudden that clear path they had for these years is not there for Billy Napier. So he's got his work cut out for him. You there, David? I think David froze up, but it seems like it happens once a night. So, David, jump on back on there when you hear us. Yeah. So that's the rule. Let me get into the Avante Williams story and see what's going on while I wait for David to unfreeze and rejoin us. Avante Williams I know some people on this show follow it or from DeLand, and he was a number one safety in the country in 2020, and that's significant because Florida needs a lot. He was like a 4-star or something, and so Avante Williams, he has a little history here going on. Avante apparently he was accused of domestic violence. And after committing, he says he was suspended And then after 35 days, he reinstated by the school football program under Manny Diaz. He brought him back after the charges were dropped in 2021. Apparently, he served a 6-game suspension in 2021 after serving a suspension in 2021. He stepped on the field the first time it was a hurricane. So anyway, he went through a little history. He was committed to Oregon and decommitted, apparently. So he has a little bit of a history. Is this the kind of guy that Billy Napier wants in Gainesville? I don't know. I know safeties like him don't fall off the back of trucks. David, is he worth taking a chance on Avonte Williams?
Well, from what I hear, I would say no. I mean, if unless he comes in and he's always going to say the right things. They always do. Like Hugh Freeze today in his press conference, at Auburn, he said everything you want a guy to say, but we will see as far as that goes. But it's one thing to make one mistake, but it seems like and this guy's made a series of them, and he is young, and you got to. I believe in second chances. Third chances you're getting some. That's starting to push it a bit. So I don't know enough about his history, and even if I did read everything, even if I had him sitting in front of me, and sort of giving him a truth serum and saying, hey, if you're repented from all this stuff and you're ready to be not just a good football but a good citizen, then you're taking a chance. And I think at least I would like to think that the bar is a little bit higher with Napier than it might be with some coaches when it comes to this. We'll see. But I'd be excited from a fan standpoint. It'd be exciting to have him, but you just this kind of thing where you don't want to, you just can't totally embrace it because you don't know what you're getting.
It's a crapshoot. Not about it. You brought up the coaching changes. Hugh Freeze. I guess I've heard him on Feinbaum today. I'm a little conflicted about it because he looks and talks like I don't want to say a sharp-tongued, guy, but he's smooth. He's likable. The escort service thing has been sort of brushed over. I was talking on Shane's show this morning about this. I couldn't remember whether he was calling the escort service for his players or himself. And I was quickly told by the audience it was for himself. But as someone else said, look, he's his wife and he have resolved that and their differences, and she's forgiven him, and that should be good enough for everybody to move on. So, your take on him? He's a heck of a football coach, and in the end, unfortunately, that matters most. But do you think this is a proper thing to have him rehabilitated at Auburn?
Yeah, it's the same type situation. You don't really know what's in the man's heart and can't tell. I mean, these weren't just garden variety problems he had at Ole Miss. I mean, putting the cell phone stuff aside, he was really just a snake about it. Because all this stuff that was coming down and all the 15 level 1 violations, and they said a couple were from the previous regime, but most were under him, and he was swearing all along he knew nothing about it, and it was all the underlings, and he was surprised as anybody when that was not true, and then when he was confronted with the cell phone, the call about the escort service, he said it was a misdial, and then they find 12 more calls, and I mean the guy,
it's a lot of misdials.
That's it's a lot of butt dialing, for the same thing, and
so to speak.
Yeah, so to speak. So, and what got me is just how dumb that is. That he didn't realize that he had an Ole Miss issued cell phone, and just if you're in that, just use a burner phone. Just do something. Just to keep that hidden, because that's really what got him the quote moral turpitude clause in his contract. That's when they said that they just couldn't. They couldn't just countenance that, because I mean he was just lying his way. He was going to lie and lie and lie and lie until he just couldn't lie anymore. Yeah, and it just caught up with him. And maybe he's had a come to Jesus meeting. The problem is he presented himself, and this it's really unfortunate because he sort of presented himself as a fellowship of Christian athletes, you know, stalwart, upstanding guy. Really embraced the religious aspect of sports, and and it just made everybody who does it was just so hypocritical what he did, and made everybody who does that look bad. You know, um, but again, yeah, I don't think that he should be blackballed from the coaching profession forever because of this. He's gone and he's paid his dues at
Yeah.
Liberty, so maybe he has, and again, we won't know. Maybe it's all in his past and all like that. I hope so for everybody's sake. But it's a calculated risk, like you said.
He said, and the good thing about that was he embraced Cadillac Williams immediately.
Yeah,
I heard the interview. He said, I didn't have to beg, but I was prepared to beg Cadillac to be a part of this. I need him. I need him to tell me what's going on, what's in the building, to be the program, whatever. He embraced him, and apparently Cadillac accepted it, because Cadillac, although he wasn't ready to be a head coach, did a really good job. He won a lot of hearts. I have friends from Auburn. They loved Cadillac, and so consequently, that was a win-win, I think, for that to happen.
Yeah, don't you think he had to do that? Because if he hadn't come in and said that, people would have said, "What are you doing?" Because you're, as you said, whatever they took to keep Cadillac there was worth it to him. He knew he had to, to win the Auburn fan base. He needed to have Caddy there.
Yeah, I know there are a lot of jokes out there already surfacing, but the best one-liner I heard, and I almost feel bad about doing it at the expense of somebody, but it's there. It's like Tonight's Show. The best line I heard was that Auburn went from a Cadillac to an Escort. Anyway, if you know your cars.
He put himself in this position to get gigged.
Yeah, he did. So. All right. So, any final thoughts on basketball team had a disaster out in Portland? Apparently, they didn't watch the game. They lost by 100 points. Something happened there. I don't know what exactly. Volleyball coming up this weekend. Not any real. It is the tournament though, and so we'll see. Should be easy peasy for Florida. First couple of games that's happening, and the program at Florida is very good. I mean, let's be honest. The football program, it was about where it should have been, but we began to believe bigger than that, and it didn't happen. Disappointing. The basketball team is obviously a work in progress as well. Baseball team ranked number 1 in the country, defending national champions in track. I mean, like I wrote the other day, maybe it's not great to be a Florida Gator, but it's pretty damn good right now too.
Yeah, in a way, you sort of wish that these, and you hate to call them minor sports, but obviously, the non-rev sports, you wish that they had as much import, but they never will. That's just the way of the world. We're a football, basketball centric world. But if you are into that, into the sports you mentioned and so many others, it's hard to find a school that it's better to be a fan of than Florida.
For sure. David Whitley, you can read him if you're lucky enough to. He's one of the best columnists in the state, in this part of the country, and he does it with a touch, very wry and also informed, which I like my columnists to be. And he's a very good one. If you haven't read it, you need to check him out. What is the website again? I always never get it right.
Gainesville.com.
Gainesville.com.
We own Gainesville.
That's a pretty good place to own it.
You got that name, baby.
You own the whole city, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I look forward to reading your next column, and always love having you on, David. And go study up on Christian Pulisic. Captain America, they're calling him Captain America. So get ready for that. Get ready for the Netherlands on Saturday. I'll expect you to give me a full report.
Oh, I'll be boner. I'm studying the Netherlands 3 deep already, buddy. Come on.
All right, David. Good having you on. Good talking to you, my friend. We'll be reading you.
Take care.
See you in the newspapers. All right, thanks. David Whitley, he always brings a little touch of wryness and accuracy and insight. Always good to have David on. So, coming up, we're going to be talking a little more soccer here with our friend Graham Hall shortly. I'll play Lauren's trivia question, and you can start thinking about this. I'm reluctant to play it, because it's the one you can look up to easily. So I think I'll hold off on that for a minute. Let's hear from Meldon, Jeffrey Meldon.
When you're a member of the Gator Nation, you know what it means to never back down. Meldon Law has been a proud supporter of the Gator Nation since 1971. Two forces that won't back down. As the old saying goes, if you can't beat 'em, join 'em.
All right, thanks very much, Jeffrey Meldon. Meldon Law, where they say they won't back down, they mean it. And as you know, they do lots of good stuff in the community. They sponsor Gator stuff, etc. Jeffrey Meldon and his team. I think Jeffrey's really playing in that band. Is that just a made-up thing? All right, so now listen to this. I'm all over Christian Pulisic, man. I got my new Mount Rushmore with him on it. I know he's from Hershey, Pennsylvania. They call him Captain America. I watched the game today as the Americans beat Iran. I'll say it right. 1-0 means they stayed alive to play the Netherlands on Saturday. And I never thought I'd say this. It was a 1-0 game, but it was a dramatic game. I thought, well, here's a guy who knows soccer. He might be able to throw us in. Graham Hall. David, you had to kind of bite your nails a little bit, didn't you?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. I was out there watching it right after we did media today with Todd Golden, and just the way that Iran plays, how defensive that team is, the United States was going to have to press for more than 90 minutes or until they got a goal there to have a chance, because it was win or go home. And for Iran, that was not the case. I know a lot of people complain about draws and how games can be not exciting at times, but in the World Cup, I think it's fine by me, especially in this group stage where you have a situation where a team, based on the other teams in their group, they can play to a draw in advance. And that's what Iran had to do today. Obviously, it was a tough task for them. But the United States, on a great ball by Serginho Dest into the box that, Christian Pulisic put his entire body into. You saw he suffered that contusion after the game. Says he'll be good to go on Saturday. But what a game by the United States. There we go. Yeah, I love it. Ah, man. That's a guy.
160 pounds of him.
Yeah, he is not the biggest guy and kind of gets pushed around with the physicality sometimes in the Premier League. But I think you saw how much skill he has and awareness to get in there, run through on that ball, see Dest playing that ball in there. That was huge for the United States. And then the drama increased, I think, even there, where Iran was desperate to get a goal back and tie, but because a tie for them would have been basically a win. So the United States, after getting one goal, was in danger of losing the entire thing, going home from Qatar right there. But good defense. There was a dangerous chance there late before Zimmerman cleared it out of the box.
Wow, that was scary.
That was scary. Goes right through Turner's legs. And, Iran actually wanted a penalty in that situation, claiming that he was dragged down a little bit of contact. I think the refs at the PK 85 probably would have called it a foul there, but it was not a foul in my book with everything on the line there. Great win by the United States, and now they advance to face a Holland team that they're pretty familiar with. Going back a decade, met this team there. One team obviously goes through there. The United States maybe thinking that this is going to be a team that is aging a little bit, really doesn't have too many young players that they're playing. Cody Gakpo is good. But Virgil van Dijk, I'm a big fan of him, and a few others, Jorginho Wijnaldum. They have a lot of guys, De Jong, who are promising players, but a little bit aging right now. And I think if the United States can get a little bit of rest here, they could potentially capitalize on this Netherlands team that hasn't looked great here. So it's a pretty exciting time, especially if you're a big soccer fan who, like I am, certainly. It's a fantastic time to sit and watch, because this is one of the most, I think, encouraging and promising teams the United States has had, and we haven't even seen them, I think, fully healthy yet. Gio Reyna could play a little bit more, especially if Christian Pulisic is not 100% healthy there, and that's a guy who plays in for Borussia Dortmund and is a proven goal scorer. So it could get certainly pretty interesting here on Saturday morning if you're up for some Saturday 9 a.m. World Cup action.
I'll be up for it. I'm gonna watch it.
Oh yeah.
It's interesting. We don't have football, but we have football, if you know what I mean. All right, so I guess we've kind of got our limit of soccer tonight, but because people want to ask you other questions. But hey, I got to tell you, I enjoyed it. I'm following it. I love me some Captain America, I tell you. So here's a couple questions for you. Maybe you know the answers. But Matt DeVos says, have you heard anything of which Florida players may enter the transfer portal? And of course, we have not. We know generically there will be quite a few of them. From what the indications have been, you're on the beat, you followed it, Francis followed it, and I'm hearing there'll be a number of people, maybe 20, 25 ultimately. They got 7 there now, right? So they could easily get 15 more maybe who are leaving, and that's not necessarily a bad thing, is it, Graham?
No, not at all. The attrition process, I think, is something that many people expected over the coming months. I mean, I think even people thought that there was going to be more attrition before this point. I think Billy Napier thought it when he came out in spring practice and said, we're going to add double-digit guys through the transfer portal. He was informed throughout the tail end of the season here over the final month that a lot of these things are not going to blindside staff. I've had conversations with players. They have a good, I think, awareness of guys who either see a larger role from themselves elsewhere, weren't really too happy with how their role played out this year, or no longer in the staff cards moving forward. I think they have a good sense of a lot of those guys. I can't really, give too many specifics right now on who I've heard is going to enter the transfer portal. I think there's some names that people have speculated on. Trent Whittemore, I've seen people talk a lot about him. That makes a lot of sense.
He's posted his already. He's gone.
Yeah, so. Guy who can't enter that, but he's already announced his intentions. Yeah. Maybe another one that you see happen, Naquan Wright, potentially just seeing how his role shaped out. And then, there's a couple, I think, to monitor as well. I don't want to give too many names, but guys who played starting roles for this team. There were a few players who, over the final couple of weeks, told Billy Napier that they were going to leave the program. Some of them chose to leave early, actually, before the season ended, and it just wasn't reported upon publicly because either the program requested it not to be, or for the optics of players leaving, they didn't really want to look like they were quote unquote quitting on the team, when the reality is that they're just getting a little bit of a head start on finding the ideal next destination. But obviously the perception leads sometimes people to criticize those who leave the program. So I think people can understand why some names didn't get out there, and you'll see over the next weeks, especially with the portal opening December 5th here, you're going to see, I think, a lot of action over the next week, guys announcing that they're going to go. And then, after the attrition process, that's how you have additions. Look at FSU, not to kind of turn it back to a undesirable thing, but go back last year. A huge reason why Mike Norvell was able to have the success that he had this year with a 9-win season was look what they did in the transfer portal. Micah Pittman, Jared Verse out of Albany. I mean, if I got to ask Florida fans, honestly, if Florida went out there and took a player from Albany University, an FCS program, with their second addition in the transfer portal, I don't think many people would be super pumped about that. But Jared Verse has worked his way into a legitimate first-round NFL draft pick if he chooses to enter this upcoming NFL draft. He's predicted to be number 10 in CBS Sports' mock. So I think that if you can go out and, after the attrition, land valuable guys. They landed Trey Benson. They added Johnny Wilson. I mean, I could go on. Tatum Bethune. That's 5 guys right there who played massive roles for that FSU team this year. That's what Florida needs to do. They need to go out after the attrition and land guys who are going to play large roles for them and contribute next year. Otherwise, the attrition hits a lot harder, and I think that is not an ideal situation to be in, where you're regretting guys leaving your program. You want to kind of think that you upgraded.
Okay. All right, final question from Graham Hall from 247 Sports. The Minister of Information, we call him. A switch to hoops real fast. Not a good showing. And the final is West Virginia. I didn't see the game. I read about it. Obviously, there's horrible stats. Castleton had a horrible day, and the team's got to regroup. You were at practice today. I'm sure you talked about it. What was going on there?
Yeah, I think that a lot of Florida's issues weren't really incredibly new. 3-point defense. They struggle with 3-point defense really from the third game of the season, and it hasn't gotten much better. Not even just in the half court, but in transition. I think that Florida continues to give up 6 to 8 transition threes a game. They're allowing opponents to average more than 8 3-points a game this season. They're hitting shots at a 37% clip. It's not really, I think, a situation defensively that a lot of teams want to be in right now in 3-point defense, 13th out of 14 teams in the SEC, in the 300s out of 352 Division I teams. That's not where you want to be. That's not winning basketball. Todd Golden also spoke a little bit about having a reliable scorer alongside Colin Castleton, because as you saw in some of those games, you can't expect him to go 33, 30, 25 every single night. I mean, he's a proven scorer, but there's going to be times where teams key in on him, be physical with him, and force other guys to make shots. And you saw how bad this team, I shouldn't even say bad, that's not the right word, but you saw how this team can struggle to be efficient and produce when Colin Castleton is held in check, even when he's getting double digits, which he was able to do in 2 of those games. Dealt with foul trouble against West Virginia. I made a crack here before I hopped on a little bit about the officiating in the PK 85. I didn't think it was fantastic. I thought that there were some soft calls, but I also thought that West Virginia took advantage of the way the game was being called. They were able to contend without fouling, and against this Florida team, that was adequate. So I think that absolutely a lot for this team to work on. Playing 3 games in 4 days certainly can pay dividends.
Yeah.
You want to make sure you rest up, but
sounds like that might have been the case. It sounds like.
Yeah, if you bounce back, if you could bounce back from a situation like this, especially when they went to a Florida Xavier game there that first night that got over 170 points. I think that if you can bounce back from this, people are going to forget that they lost, 2 of 3 in Portland. It's how they implement the corrections. It's what I wrote about on swamp247.com today. I encourage everyone to check it out. It's how you bounce back from this. Florida has a chance to do it tomorrow night against a FAMU team that's won only of its first 5 games. It should be a game for Florida to get a little bit of confidence back before some upcoming tough contests with UConn and Oklahoma. It's going to get a little bit tougher here before conference play opens on December 28th against Auburn.
Good stuff from Graham Hall, 247 Sports. As always, read him. We love having you on. Thank you. Appreciate it, Graham.
My pleasure. Y'all take care out there.
All right. Graham Hall, Minister of Information. And in the green room is this guy, and that's the guy called the Orange and Blue Room. And here's his question. Get ready for it. It's going to be one of those that people are going to come strong. So you better get ready to go right now because it's not going to last.
Lauren Meadows with Gator Bait Media here, coming to you live from Spurrier's Gridiron Grill with Tuesday Night Trivia. In 1966, Steve Spurrier was awarded the Heisman Trophy. Who finished second in the voting for the Heisman Trophy in 1966? Was it A, O.J. Simpson, B, Gary Beeben, C, Bob Greasy, or D, Floyd Little? Be the first to answer and you'll be entered into our monthly drawing for prizes from Spurrier's Gridiron Grill. With Tuesday Night Trivia and Gator Bait, this is Lauren Meadows.
All right, there it is. He's in the house now. And that should be an easy one. Old-time Gators will know it right away. They'll pick it up. It won't last. There's the answer already. So, and there's the guy. Before Lauren got on, his question was answered. But go ahead and we'll see what people got to say about it. Back in the day when we reported on that, those old timers knew that name quite well. There was a little bit of a rivalry, but not really, between the two guys. So, So Lauren, how you doing, man?
Doing well. How you doing?
I enjoyed me some soccer today. I watched. You probably didn't have time to watch the game, but I've been talking about it way too much. But what a great story and a new hero, Captain America. Guy from Hershey, Pennsylvania, Christian Pulisic. And he gave up his body, sacrificed his body, got a goal, went to the hospital, but as you know, the United States won it 1-0 over Iran. So a nice win. They're going to go on to play the Netherlands on Saturday, and here we go.
Yeah, I mean, I think that, after an absence and being away from the World Cup, coming to Qatar, however you want to pronounce it, and having a strong showing, working a draw against the team from England, and then, setting themselves up to have an opportunity to get into the knockout round with a win over Iran. And, I just think that, a guy from Hershey, Pennsylvania scoring the winning goal doesn't get more American than Hershey and that type of deal. So I'm not a huge soccer fan, but obviously a fan of all of our national teams and excited about. I was talking to the gentleman at my gym who follows soccer. He was actually kind of singing the praises of the United States, and I heard Graham talking about that the Netherlands is a little older team, and this gentleman thought that the Netherlands might be a little vulnerable. So we'll see what happens on Saturday.
Well, they had to get there, and they did. That's a big thing. So we'll see how it turns out. By the way, what are your rules on trivia? If you won once, you can't win again for how long, or can you win again?
Well, Michael, I think monthly. Michael Burton chimed in, so since he didn't win the drawing, he can have it, so he can go in.
So there's your answer. Michael Burton has Bob Greasy. That is the correct answer.
Yeah.
We know that quite well. And Greasy, of course, played for the Dolphins when Spurrier was out in San Francisco. I think they were kind of rivals for a while, but they became friends. And Bob Greasy was from Purdue. He came in there and he had a good year on a different situation. If they'd have voted in the Heisman after the last game instead of before the last game, Steve wouldn't have won it because he lost to Miami.
Right.
But anyway, so congratulations to Michael Burton, who's a regular listener, and he gets in the hopper, as we say, right? In the hopper. So let's give him a little hand right here and say congratulations. Nice. There you go. Go ahead.
And let Toby know that his shirt is. I spoke with the people at Spurs. His shirt should be arriving sometime soon, and I want to thank the people at Spurriers for offering up their services for some swag, and I think I'll pass on your address to Buddy as well. I think Buddy has some things he might be sending you to as well, Toby. So
don't have it yet, but I'll work on it. I've got a box of things I'm looking at, but right now, let's send him his shirt. We'll work on the other stuff. But we will have. I've got a collection of old Gator books and things you can buy if you want them, and we'll start it. We'll figure out how to get that to them. So you keep the addresses, and I'll see what I can do about providing the other stuff. Okay.
Oh yeah, but we thank everybody for playing for sure.
Yeah. So Matt's gone. He said that's all he wanted to hear. He's gone. It's really nice. So, all right. So let's talk a little bit about football. What's ahead now? We're waiting for the bowl news. There's a lot of guesses out there. And what we're hearing, we heard 3 different bowl games. And I think we're talking about some people are way off base. I had said the Gator Bowl if they could beat FSU. That's not going to happen. Mm-hmm. So we'll see. I'm sure you've heard all the same ones. Las Vegas Bowl and Birmingham Bowl and what have you. And we'll see how it turns out. What have you heard?
Yeah, I mean, pretty much I spoke with somebody fairly close to the program this afternoon, and, their first product, maybe selfishly, obviously, was Las Vegas. If you look at some of the tie-ins, Birmingham Bowl, I did see one projection was the Reliquist Bowl, which I'm not sure. It all depends on,
that's the old Outback Bowl, right? Is that what that is?
Yeah, that's the old Outback Bowl, and then so I think, and then I saw another one where the Gasparilla Bowl could be a possibility again, and it's all gonna come down to these bowl games want to put butts in the seats, so they're gonna look for the most intriguing matchup, and I know Gator fans would really like to maybe spend their December out in Las Vegas as opposed to the usual suspects in Florida, and with no disrespect to the city of Birmingham, nobody really wants to head out that way. So
let's see, Birmingham or Las Vegas? Yeah. Birmingham or Las Vegas? Which one would you want to go to?
So no, but I think that like I said, the Las Vegas Bowl is in play. But if I was a bowl, I just don't know. I mean, these bowls have their ways of breaking things down. So that's what everybody else is hearing is what I've heard as well. Like I said, the first thing I asked the person close to the program is they said Las Vegas. So we'll see.
Toby wants to know, we don't know yet all this stuff because we haven't been privileged to, about players like Shorter and Henderson, who's going to play. We have no idea. We don't even know if if Anthony Richardson is going to play.
I would say speculation. I would say Henderson is probably done for the year, and Shorter possibly. If that would be my best guess. Possibly Shorter. I would say Henderson would be a no.
And if Anthony is going to go out, is going to come out, obviously he's not going to play either. So we'll see what it's unfortunate. That's the nature of this beast. And I've said this 1,000 times, and I'll say it again, which is to say, if they fix the playoffs, go to 12 games, they wouldn't have this problem for a lot of players because they're all going to play in the playoffs because they improve their stock. So again, it's it's just one of those things. And bowls are pretty much meaningless now. It's a holiday. It's really a 2-week practice period they get with their players.
Right.
So I was looking at the rankings tonight. Was no surprise there, with Georgia, Michigan, and the 4 TCU, USC, and we'll see what happens to whether or not Ohio State come in the back door or whatever. If USC should lose or whatever, or even TCU, but TCU looks pretty good. I was thinking about reevaluating the Florida record based on this. I'm not going to try to make more out of it than it is because it's a disappointment. There's no way to put a shine on it. It's just below expectations. But looking at it now, we have the so-called final regular season rankings. Florida not ranked, but Florida beat number 11 Utah and clobbered number 16 South Carolina, who went 8-4 and beat them 38-6. That's the good news. They lost 3 games by 1 score or less. And their worst losses were the number 1 team in America, Georgia by 22, and a team that was ranked in the top 10, LSU by 10. So looking at it from that standpoint, and they never got blown out. I wouldn't call Georgia a blowout against the number 1 team. So I think overall there's 6 and 6s and there's 6 and 6s. There's bad 6 and 6s. This was a okay 6 and 6 from that standpoint.
Yeah, I would agree. You look at it, and it's sad, but like I said, we've talked about it, for quite some time now. Really the last 2 years, Florida could have put up anywhere between an 8-4, 9-3 season the last 2 years in different ways. And you look as bad as Florida was in 2021, they probably should have been a 9-3 football team. And you look at it this year, there were probably 8 wins to be had as well. I think that, the difference is you have a 6-6 season, which will be followed by what should be, anywhere between, let's just say, a top 10 recruiting class. And, you look at Utah, the way that they've maintained kind of their swag throughout the season and really finished strong. Florida had a football team that could line up with anybody. I mean, you look at the way that Auburn played with Alabama and the Texas A&M team that easily could have beat Alabama. They probably could line up with anybody at any point during the season. It's just a play here, a play there. And, I think that the biggest thing, though, is the fact that you have a 6-6 season and it's going to be followed by a top 10 recruiting class, which should bode well for the Gators. And I think what comes along with that is I think people are going to look at the Florida Gators and say, Florida's an attractive place to play, great weather, some of the best competition that you're going to find.
Great facilities now. Great facilities now. And once they start, kind of combing the transfer portal and things like that, I really do think you're going to see anywhere between 10 to 15 guys that, like Graham said, should be able to come in, make an impact immediately, and change the face of the program. Like I said on Sunday, I'm really interested to see what kind of team they roll out at the beginning of April when spring ball starts. And I think that that's something that, if you look at this 6-6, I think it's a 6-6 that you find, you can build on it.
Like
you can build on it.
Like Yeah. Like Kenny said, a couple defensive stops, and it could have been a different season. Definitely would have been a different game last Friday. And I think that that's where you find this team is it's an optimistic 6-6, not necessarily like the sky's falling. And I will say this, the 15 practices, I guarantee you that Billy Napier and his staff will not take those 15 practices lightly. It's something that, particularly when you're a team that's 6-6, you definitely need that opportunity. I think the team will be ready to play. And, if like I said, if they go through this one game season and win whatever bowl that it will at least leave a positive note coming off of what should be a good signing day in December and then rolling into the final signing period in February. So,
all right. I want to ask you two quickies, and I'm going to tell you first about Restar Medical Research, one of our fine sponsors. They're a stakeholder here in downtown Ocala. They have a proven reputation as a high-quality, patient-centered clinical research facility near downtown. Brings cutting-edge clinical research trials to Ocala in areas like Alzheimer's, psoriasis, osteoarthritis, migraines, fibromyalgia, and many other conditions that affect our community. So, since their inception in 1998, they've participated in over 700 clinical trials and continue to partner with prominent pharmaceutical and biomedical companies throughout the medical industry. Renstar Medical Research, seeking tomorrow's answers to the health questions of today. Two things to touch on. One of them is Dion being rumored that being going to be getting an offer. They say one report is, I hate to say they say, but one report is he's 90% he's done at South Florida. How's that going to affect the Gators? And secondly, Avante Williams, the safety, one of the number one safety who's had a few problems, is going to the portal for Miami. Which one do you want to answer first?
Well, let's take them in order. So, and probably what people want to know the most. Deion Sanders has done as good a job at Jackson State as anyone could have expected. Probably exceeded expectations when he took the job. I've even been pleasantly surprised with the ability to manage the team both schematically and from an emotional standpoint. They show up, they're disciplined, they don't make mistakes, they don't beat themselves. And then, obviously he's been able to make waves in both on the recruiting trail as well as in the transfer portal. And what that means for Florida is just like anything else. I mean, buddy, I always point out to people that when Spur was really, really banging them out, there was no USF, there was no UCF, there was no Florida Atlantic, there was no Florida International. And, now all those schools are players, and you add a polarizing figure who will understand the landscape, I think will be welcomed by most of the high school football coaches in the state of Florida. It's going to really move the needle.
It's going to affect recruiting. It's going to have an impact.
Yeah,
maybe
absolutely.
Not a huge one, but some kind.
No. I think it will have a huge impact because once, it's like Shane said this morning on his show. It's kind of a sleeping giant. It's kind of an opportunity to they get a campus, a stadium on campus, which I think is in the plans at some point in time. You've got the hotbed of Central Florida as a recruiting ground. And like I said, I think where some coaches that come in, even Billy Napier, they have to kind of ingrain themselves into the high school football culture in the state. I think he'll be welcomed by mostly all of the coaches in the state, and he'll be able to tap into the IMGs and some of those places. And then some places won't accept him, but I think that's it's an intriguing.
He's going to be a factor in recruiting in Florida if he comes to South Florida.
Absolutely.
They better hope he goes to Colorado. All right, we got about 30 seconds to spend on the other one. The question, which is Avante Williams, who's out there. He's leaving Miami. He said originally he committed to Oregon, but his coach left, so he came to Miami. He had some issues with domestic violence. Charges were dropped. So he's had a little bit of a checkered career, shall we say. But a heck of a player as a safety. Where do you think Florida is on that? He's leaving mine.
Well, I mean, if I remember correctly, I think Florida might have been at least in his top 5 at one time,
Seems like it.
And signing day thought that they had an opportunity to get him in under the Mullen regime. So, I mean, it's definitely somebody that they could take a look at. I know that he struggled with some injuries at Miami. I don't know if there was any off the field issues, but I know that he struggled with some injuries. So, in analyzing where he can fit with the Gators, they have to look at, how healthy he can be and that kind of thing. Because what you don't want to bring in is somebody that's going to consistently, find themselves in the training room versus being on the field, and that'll be interesting. But I'm sure that Bird Sherrill and his staff will take a hard look at the young man, find out what his intentions are, and you'd be a fool not to look at anybody that was a top recruit coming out of high school and could come in the Florida system, maybe a change of scenery, change of lifestyle a little bit. Things tend to move a little slower up here in Gainesville, and maybe what the young man needs is just to have an opportunity to purely focus on football in a different environment. So,
well, coaches get a chance to rehab. Look at what happened at Auburn. So, Hugh Freeze. So we'll say, all right, Lauren, good stuff as usual. We'll talk to you this weekend on Orange and Blue Bloods. Keep up the good work.
Yes,
reminding you folks that Lauren's got more good stuff to give away. Congratulations to, is it Toby tonight? No.
No. It was Burton. Michael Burton.
Michael Burton. Congratulations. The answer to the trivia was who finished second to Steve Spurrier in the 1966 Heisman race, and that was Bob Greasy. Lauren, thanks a lot. Go ahead.
I was going to say one more thing. The difference that'll be, I've seen a lot of people thinking it. I would venture to think that Utah could beat USC again. The only difference is no Tavion Thomas this time. He's out for the season, so going to head to the draft. So that could be a big difference. That takes a lot of the thump out the running game for Utah that they had the first time they played.
All right. Good stuff, Coach Meadows. Appreciate it, buddy. You have a good night. We'll talk to you again soon. Read you. Well, we don't actually have a story on the breakdown this week, but you'll be reading Lauren and watching him.
I might come up with something. I don't know. We'll see. Yeah. Maybe something.
All right. We're good. We always love that. All right, buddy. Thank you. Lauren Meadows, the coach, we call him. All right. Thank you. So we'll wrap it up and say thank you to our guests tonight, David Whitley, Graham Hall, Lauren Meadows. And tomorrow night we got, we've got Scott Carter and David Moulton. Thanks to our sponsors tonight. We're going to be back with more tomorrow night. Same time, same station. Thanks for listening and thanks for watching The Buddy Martin Show.